Welcome to Freed on Business. He grew up in South Florida, has been in business here since the early 90s, and has closed over $3 billion in deals. He's seen it all. He always has an opinion, and he's always ready to share it. Informed, entertaining, and connected, he has his finger on the pulse of South Florida's business community. He's Jim Freed, and this is Freed on Business.
All right, everybody, welcome to episode 823 of Freed on Business. We're here today. We're going to have our guest is going to be Peter Zalewski. I never say the name right, but my heart is always in it. Of the MiamiCondo.club. Peter has learned how to make a good living reporting, commenting, and following the Miami condo market through its ups and downs. I've known Peter for, well, God, it seems like forever, but at least 20 years at this point. We met when he was a Cub reporter for the Miami Business Review, the Daily Business Review. Remember, we're streaming live on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch. I love Twitch, and Instagram. You can find us at Freed on Business or at Jim Freed. And like I said, today we're going to be talking about the Miami condo market, what's going on. It's headline news every day here in Miami because Miami is driven by condos. And remember, our sponsor for, 15 plus years. Thank you to our friends at Warren Henry Automotive. Always the best price, always the best service, always Warren Henry. Buy a condo and buy a car too. Here we are with Peter. Peter, come on. Where is he? Miami Podcast Studio. Hey, Peter.
What's going on, Jim? Great to see you. 823. Wow. Very impressive.
Yeah, a couple more than those guys on CNN for the record.
Well done. Hey, is there a podcast Hall of Fame? If so, I put you on the short list.
Oh, thank you. Make that nomination and put it up on your fabulously well-followed, Instagram and all your other accounts. So, Peter, let's get right to it. You've been following the Miami condo market for quite some time. You've coined the phrase about the old condos. I forget legacy condos. Is that what you call them?
Vintage
condos. Right.
That's right.
Like vintage cars. But let's face it, just from my own condo window, I can see different genres of condos. When I look at the Miami Beach skyline, you can tell when the condo was built basically by how tall it was. They thought they were saving all the condos when they passed the Miami condo law after the Surfside collapse, and all they really did was get rid of the majority of the affordable housing here in South Florida. What's going on with the condo market today? You've got, you're the fastest man. You can get a 1 hour show in 10 minutes. So try.
Real simple. The amount of inventory on the market today matches where we were in 2016. So what that means is back in 16, we were building from the Great Recession. If you look at the number of sales that occurred in the winter buying season, which would be November of 2024 up through April of 2025, we haven't seen such a low number of units since right after your favorite word, Jim, Lehman Brothers. So our transaction pace is post Lehman Brothers era. Our resale level is boom era. So you got a real disconnect going on right now in the market. And therefore, because condos are commodities in my mind, just like salty snacks, coffee, or gasoline, you're going to have a pullback in pricing. Otherwise, there's no way it's going to be able to go forward. I feel bad for the people who bought this winter. Chances are they didn't know what they were doing, and they're probably going to feel it really bad because the music has stopped.
So, Peter, I live in Edgewater. You did a walking tour in Edgewater. I wasn't able. I had a conflict. I really wanted to go. I think you did it on a Saturday morning. I must admit, I go to synagogue when you're walking around showing the condos. You can do that in my neighborhood. You see the cranes. You see the units finishing. I live in probably the first mover condo building in the marketplace. What's going on in Edgewater? Let's just use that as a nice focus.
Well, let me sort of give you a rule of thumb. So when you're looking at the condo market, again, if you sort of buy into the idea that they're actually commodities, if you buy into the condo market, equilibrium for a market should be about 6 months of supply. That's for the market. Both sides have to compromise. Less than 6 months, sellers got the advantage because there's nothing to choose from. More than 6 months, buyer has the advantage because they're like, listen, I can buy whatever I want. There's all these units. What am I going to buy? So again, 6 months equilibrium. The Edgewater area is coming in about 21 months. So we are in a severe buyer's market, and there's really no sign of transaction occurring anytime soon. Why is that? Not to be political, but you got to wait and see. You got a paralysis by analysis summer right now because of the uncertainty related to tariffs. How are you going to make a decision to build? How are you going to make a decision to buy if you don't know what the foreseeable future is? And if I could just remind you, when we come to the end of the quarter in June, we have a chance to be in recession. Recession's 2 consecutive months of contracting GDP. We contracted in Q1, we contract in Q2. Watch for the end of July for an announcement of recession, and then lo and behold, everybody starts to freak out.
So, combination of interest rate issues, slacking in demand, lack of public, good high-end private schools for the folks to live in. But I would have to believe that the marketplace is stratified between the ultra luxe, super luxe, brand new, fancy spanky condos, the original condos that are now approaching 15, 17, 18 years old, and the things that are in between. Is this supply-demand imbalance mix stratified or what? I know in a number of the buildings, they're just compare it to the COVID buying frenzy, and obviously we're not there, but where are we?
Well, I'd say where we are is, first of all, it used to be location, location, location. You heard that from every realtor up and down the street. Location, location, location. I would tell you it's no longer location. It's age, age, age. First thing you do if you're looking for a condo, how old is the damn thing? Keeping in mind that every 10 years you're getting hit with a special assessment. The first special assessment is at year 10. And by the way, this is all based on certificate of occupancy. So every 10 years you're getting hit with a special assessment. At year 30, you're getting hit with the big one because we now have something called a milestone inspection. That's when they really roll up the sleeves. They get in there, they figure out what's going on. And most importantly, you have to fund it now. And before you used to be able to defer it. So this has changed the market tremendously. I will say anybody looking to buy value, typically these vintage condos, 30 years or more, they're going to trade for about 50 cents on the dollar compared to the overall market. The only way you can have some sort of reassurance is if you get a report. Reports are being handed out from buildings that pass. They're done by engineers and architects, so that should give you a little bit of wiggle room. But in terms of the vintage, let me just set up that, and then we'll go into the new. Right now in date, about 50% of the resale market is made up of vintage, or i.e. old ass stuff. And then if you look at Broward and Palm Beach County, you're coming in at 80% of the market. Now, if we switch over to new, we're going to see the price difference is so dramatic, 2, 3, 4 times higher. A lot of people say it's cost prohibitive, but you say, you know what? I want safety. I don't want a building collapsing on me. Maybe let's take a shot at it. Lo and behold, the University of Miami study comes out in December, and it says that we got 35 towers on the barrier island that are sinking. My words, not theirs, in terms of sinking. They use a more scientific term that I can never pronounce. So let's just call it sinking. So now the study is being expanded to see if they're sinking in greater downtown Miami, if they're sinking on the mainland. And I'm told they also are looking at the barrier island as we go up the coast. So we kind of are, we're sandwiched in. We got old product and we also have new ones, but the new construction is creating all kinds of repercussions people hadn't anticipated or even looked at. And the only reason they know now, according to the press reports, is they're using satellite images to be able to detect, is this sinking? Is it settling where all buildings settle, or is it actually sinking with the possibility that there could be long-term repercussions? And that's the part that's open for discussion. Developers and architects will tell you, don't worry, everything's fine. The scientists say something a little bit different if you look at the press reports, again, coming from University of Miami research.
So, Peter, what's the impact that you're seeing on the interest rate market? We're still well below what the 30-year average has been on interest rates. They have ticked up a little bit recently, but still a good borrower can get pretty good Fannie and Freddie, and that's another thing you can talk about in the answer, Fannie and Freddie loan at below 7.
Below 7, but unfortunately, a lot of people say it needs to start with a 5 handle in order to really sort of spur on, the resale market. Now, the other issue you run into when you're talking about Fannie Mae is many of these condos down here, because of the proportion or the ratio of investors or non-primary users, homesteaded properties, in other words, because the ratio is out of whack, a lot of these buildings simply can't get financing. And then you run into the reserve issue related to the studies. So there is a blacklist that exists. I spoke to one of the lawyers who's got his hands on the blacklist. Supposedly there's a firm that is connected between Boston and Fort Lauderdale. They have the blacklist. They have not yet released it. If you reach out to them, they'll tell you, hey, your building is or is is not on it, but there's a blacklist out there that think of it kind of like a dark pool or something that's going on. So if you can't get financing in a building, chances are there's some complications related to it. And it probably has to do with the ratio of renters to owners, primary users, I should say, as well as the possibility that there simply aren't reserves in place. Yeah, I mean, Jim, let me give you context. Special assessments are coming because of Surfside. Legislation was put in place. The legislature wants to make sure the insurance industry sticks around. Insurance industry is only sticking around if they know that what they're insuring is actually safe and it's sound. So what we're seeing anecdotally, and no studies have been done that I'm aware of thus far, typically if a building is 3 stories or less, anticipate a $25,000 special assessment. If that building is coming in between 4 and let's say 13 stories, we don't have 13 down here, so call it 12, if you will. You're going to look at probably 50 to 75 grand special assessment. Over 14 stories, it's going to be $100,000 plus. And I would tell anybody, based on what people I've spoken to and what I've seen, your first special assessment is the first one. Typically in construction, it's 3 times as long and twice as much. So just because they say it's 100 G's a door, don't think it's going to stop there. And then if you factor in tariffs, and what impact they're going to have on costs, it's sort of all up for discussion. And on the tariff issue, I would just sort of throw out there, George Perez's kid, John Paul Perez, is the CEO of the Related Group, one of the largest vertical condo developers in Florida. He came out in CNBC probably about, call it a month and a half, 2 months ago, and said that all of their bids that were coming in on new construction were coming in 20% higher because general contractors had to try to anticipate the impacts of tariffs. And we all know developers have to make money. So therefore that 20% is probably going to get passed along to the buyer. So basically summer of paralysis of analysis, nobody goes forward. Those sellers who need to get out, if you need to get out, you better pull that ripcord ASAP and don't do a minimal $5,000 decrease. Be bold if you really want to get out. Otherwise, you're simply going to get called with the rest of the, the rest of the unit owners.
No, I also think there'll be an impact of the lack of, I don't really know what to call it, except all of the lack of mobility of the Latin American buyer and their uncertainty of being able to come and go as they please here in the United States is one thing. And I do want to say anybody who's holding out hope that a 5-handle interest rate is going to save them, they got bigger problems in life than that 5-handle, because they ain't going to see that again in their lifetime. Not with a lot of, we don't talk about politics here, but we can certainly talk economics, and the crowding out of the government deficit and the need to fund that deficit is going to keep interest rates high for the foreseeable future.
Jim, let's get in a time machine. Let's go back. You've done 283 shows. Let's go back. If you go back to the great
823, you're a little bit fast.
I'm sorry. Yeah, that was my dyslexic moment. So Jim, if we get in a time machine and we go back to the Great Recession, who bailed us out when we had built way too much? We had speculators come in. They were bidding up the prices. They were putting out 20% deposits. They were walking once the units came out of line simply because the valuations of the current market when they were ready to close were lower than what these people were paying. Who bailed us out? It was the Foreign National. Why was it the Foreign National? U.S. dollar was so weak. Canadians, the Canadian loonie, their dollar at the time was on par with the US dollar. So if I came with 1 Canadian and I bought US dollars, I was getting 1-to-1 minus the fee. Obviously, today, take a look at it. What is it? With a Canadian dollar, you're going to get what, 60 cents, 65 cents, 55 cents. So I don't know who bails us out of this situation, because much of this was bolstered by domestic buyers who parachuted in from from California and parachuted in from New York. They bid up everything because they said we were so cheap. They were going to work from home, and this was the ultimate. And now they've all gotten called back to the office, whether JP Morgan wants them back in New York City or Silicon Valley says, hey, we got to work on AI. You need to leave Miami and come back to California. Who bails us out? That's the part that's yet to be determined.
Well, we're going to hold it right there because I have an idea. We'll be back after a short break with the bottom line that Peter's going to share with us. Right after this, this is where Miami Podcast Studio does their thing. Oh, I love that video. It looks like my view out of my condo at night there. I want to thank our sponsors at Warren Henry Automotive. They've been with us for quite a long time now. I want to thank Larry, Eric, Ismet, Gerald, everybody over at Warren Henry. They treat my family, my clients, my friends, all like their family. And just like when you're looking for a condo, when you're looking for a car, you want to get every advantage that you can. You want to find the right value, the best price. That's what you get at Warren Henry. Land Rover, Range Rover, Infiniti, Jaguar, and Lincoln up at 151st and Biscayne and Gainesville. They sell Audis. Down in the Keys, they've got all the great nameplates. And of course, in South Dade and West Broward, they've got their award-winning Land Rover, Range Rover stores. What do they have in common besides great cars? The Warren Henry advantage, a whole group of things you get when you buy your car. My favorite advantage is that whenever I bring it in for service, I can schedule the service. I schedule a loaner, jump in that loaner. By the time I'm usually done that day with seeing my mom or whatever I'm doing up by 151st and Biscayne, I go back and Gerald, he's got my car ready. Ronaldo, my other service advisor, they've got my car ready. They wash it, they make it feel like it's spanking new, and they tell me whatever is or isn't wrong with it. And I believe them because they tell me the truth, because I'm a member of the Warren Henry family. Remember, always the best price, always the best service, always Warren Henry.
Welcome back to Freed on Business. Connect with us on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter at Jim Freed or at Freed on Business, and on Instagram at Jim Freed1. Now, back to your host, Jim Freed.
Here's where my dyslexia comes in. We've got the founder of the Miami Condo Club. Is it MiamiCondo.club or MiamiCondo.club? Well, he'll tell us in a second. Peter Zalewski, I never always get his name right, but that's my fault. I apologize. He's cracking up. Put him back on, would you? There he is. So Peter, we've got we've got all the explosions going on behind you. Remember when the great financial crisis was here? That's when I basically started my show. My famous line was, the moderator asked me, what was I going to say about the Miami condo market? I said, which exploding cigar do you want to talk about first? That was when they weren't even funding the HOAs and stuff like that. They were turning off cable and all kinds of other things. What do you foresee happening? What's the bottom line that you see here in the Miami condo market? You really are the expert and the long-time observer. You've got all the data and the information. What does your data and information say is going to happen next?
Well, there's some legislation, HB 913, that was passed by the House and the Senate in Florida. As far as today, when we're recording this, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has not yet signed off on it. If he signs off on it, effectively, it's going to give a little bit of a wiggle room from what I've read in the legislation for condo owners. Those people who are on fixed incomes are challenged to try to come up with the cash to pay for all the necessary work as well as reserves. And if that happens, watch for this whole process to get pulled out about 2 extra years. But at this point, we think we're just in the beginning of boring through a mountain, if you will, of a problem. We'll probably come out of it in about 2030, 2031, because what you have to do first and foremost is you have to buy out all of these condo owners who are in vintage buildings, again, over 30 years or more. I'm working on some termination deals. I will tell you, the hardest part is not coming to a price. It's trying to herd the cats. And the cats are the individual unit owners who all talk to a brother-in-law, a sister, a neighbor who tells them the price is this, price is that. And trying to get that majority of people come together is very difficult. Once these buildings are actually able to get terminated, then you got to tear it down. Then you got to pre-sell it. You bring in a bunch of pretty people, some booze. You try to get them liquored up, get them to sign a contract. Then you begin the construction. So watch for 2030, 2031 for us to come through on the other side of this. Now, when we come to the other side, our condo market is going to be so well understood. And I would venture to guess we're actually going to be at a point where condos are going to start to really, truly trade like commodities, wherein you're going to have all the details on them. You'll have everything you need to know. And now you can start to purchase a condo, not sight unseen, but everything will be there. And then, hey, do I like the building or not? So I think that's where we're going. But we got a lot of tough sledding from now until, say, call it the next 5, 6, 7 years?
Well, I agree with you on pretty much most of that, and would suggest that we get together in the green room. So stick with me after we're done with the show, because we've got a couple of ideas that I think we should be working on together. I want to remind everybody that I have families from across the globe that I work with, help them find value in companies, value in real estate, new ideas. I help them execute their business plans. So reach out to me, contact me, Jim Freed, Sandstone Realty Advisors. Let me help you do everything from finance to construction of your transaction to your acquisition, to help you figure out how to solve the problem you or your co-tenants are having on your real estate transaction. I want to remind everybody, if you missed something on today's episode, you can check out the replay on any of my social feeds, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitch, or Instagram, at Jim Freed or at Freed on Business. You can head on over to the at Jim Freed YouTube page, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you listen to audio, we're going to be there. Check out all of our past episodes too. I want to remind everybody to check out our longtime sponsors and partners, Warren Henry. I want to remind everybody we also are sponsored by the Bergstrom Center for Real Estate Studies at the University of Florida, generating some of the best real estate professionals out there. I want to let everybody know, Peter's a great example of this, that the person who wants to do something finds a way. The other person finds an excuse. Now go out there and make it happen. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America. The rest of the show is yours, Miami Podcast Studios. Do your magic.